Good morning, everybody. How are you today? I hope you're well. I am well, I am fine, thank you very much. I'm a little bit warm though. The theme for the weather in August seems to be, it's definitely cooler than July, so we're hovering around the mid-20s, let's say 25, which is double, it's 50, I think it's about 80 in Fahrenheit. But a lot of cloud cover, and that's making it really humid. It's gorgeous, not complaining. Well, the only thing with the humidity is the whole B word issue on the tomatoes, which I'm not gonna say it out loud. I don't want to mention the B word. It's like when I used to be at work, you weren't allowed to mention the Q word. I'll never forget it actually. I was a student nurse. It was my very first placement, and for the first sort of 6 or 8 weeks that I was in that placement, it was a ward placement, a general medical, paediatric medical ward as opposed to a surgical ward. It was crazy, Looney Tunes busy all the time. And then I remember this one shift where we weren't getting any kids up from A&E. I was really fortunate actually where I did my training. There was a dedicated paediatric A&E, absolutely brilliant. I think there should be way more paediatric A&Es separate from the adults. Kids have separate issues. Anyway, on this particular day we weren't getting any admissions from A&E. We were discharging kids left, right and centre. And I remember saying, oh, it's so quiet today. Oh my goodness. It was like I'd broken a dam. Suddenly it's like 10 nurses jumping on me and pummeling me, metaphorically speaking. Don't ever say that. Oh yeah, sure enough, about 2 hours later it all kicked off. So yes, if you're a student nurse at the moment, I'm sure you know this already, but never ever say the Q word on the ward. Likewise, I'm not going to say the B word in the garden. Anyway, well, that's a little digression, first thing, isn't it? So, the main thing for today, excuse me, having done my tour a couple of days ago, even just going around on that day, obviously every time I'm here I'm having a little look what's going on, but I thought, wow, I need to do some harvesting. Suddenly, it's all that rain we had at the end of July. So the focus for today is harvesting, and as we go around I'm going to hopefully share a few hints and tips about storing as we go. Sorry, tickling, it's that memory of saying the Q word on the ward. Yeah, so a few hopefully hints and tips as we go around, but also what I'm really excited about today is I'm going to harvest the lentils. So if you remember, I tried them last year as an underplanting beneath one of the teepees in the cathedral bed, but the squash went so mad they swamped out the lentils. So this is the first year they've come to fruition. Now when I planted them more as a sort of ground cover, having seen what they did last year under the teepee, of just, they smothered the ground and they sort of suppressed weeds, they helped keep moisture. So in truth, when I planted them or sowed them this year, I wasn't expecting a harvest. I think it's going to be really tricky. We'll come to that shortly when we come to it. So what I'm saying is, if I end up without a harvest from them, if it's too tricky, no matter, it's all adding to the compost. They've done a great job in these first few months of the summer of covering the ground, keeping it beautifully moist for the peas behind them. So yeah, that's one of the things today. Yeah, so all sorts of harvesting. We'll get out there in a second, but excuse me, let me clear this frog from my throat. Rivet. Do you know why frogs say rivet? Because they can't say nuts and bolts. Lollipop stick brain. I wanted to show you something today that I don't think, because I never show you the other side of the shed, do I? My sort of potting bench. But I've got a lovely calendar over there. Let me show you the front of it. It's called, what's it called? The Radical Literary Calendar. It's from a company called the Radical Tea Towel Company. They do beautiful, beautiful products, all sort of graphic prints on all sorts of things. Tea towels. They're incredibly expensive. I mean, really, really expensive, but beautiful, really high quality products. But the reason I wanted to mention it today is because I've got through for my August month. And I just thought this is such a perfect quote. It's from Walden, which I've never read cover to cover. I've dipped in, read bits here and there, and I was thinking, you know what, I'm going to line it up for the winter. I barely get a chance to read in the summer, which is such a shame, but I'm definitely going to line this up for the winter to read it cover to cover, because this is the quote on the calendar for August. I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life and see if I could not learn what it had to teach, and not, when I came to die, discover that I had not lived. Oh, I love that. Isn't that great? Yes. Let's be out there. Let's discover what we can. Let's live and learn and embrace the beauty and the joy of the natural world, or in our little sort of microcosms of the natural world in our gardens. I would love to live in the woods. There we go. Anyway, thank you, Mr. Thoreau, for giving us such beautiful, thought-provoking words before we start our day of harvesting. Come on, let's grab a fork, grab our gloves, grab a bucket. We're off to the woods to go harvesting. I'm starting in the new potato patch with my harvesting today. I will give you a closer up look in a minute, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about harvesting and storing potatoes. Normally with the new potatoes, I just have them out as and when I need them, as and when I'm going to eat them. But for some reason this year they've lasted me longer than normal. So I've got a whole row and I think either one or two plants over there. I need to get them out because I want to sow my purple sprouting broccoli. That really needs to go in. So some of them that I'm digging up, the tops, the actual plant material is still green. And I was sort of briefly mentioning this, I think, in the tour video, that for storing any of your potatoes you want to store, ideally you would let the plant die back. Once the plant's died back, give it a couple of weeks, and what's happening once that plant has died back on the surface, in the ground those skins are curing. You'll often hear people talk about curing. Basically what we mean by that is they begin to dry and harden a little bit, which makes them much, much better for storing. You wouldn't normally do that with new potatoes. They're not a potato for storing. You have them up, scoff them, enjoy them. So quite a few of the new potatoes still have really quite green tops. What I will do after I've dug them all up, I'm going to check for ones that are a bit green. What I'll do once they're all up, I'm going to just put them on the table by the shed. It's not particularly sunny today, but it is warm, so I'm just going to leave them out to dry off a little bit, but they will be something that I'm going to eat within the next sort of 3 to 4 weeks. They probably won't last that long. The main crops I'm going to leave, I will let those all die over, because that is something that I want to store. I don't ever bother weeding in my potato beds. Obviously once that foliage is up and rampant, as it has been for most of the summer, they're acting as a bit of their own. Oh, they are the funniest shapes, I'll show you in a minute, but Oops, I'll show you that way, it's a bit rude. Yeah, they're acting as a bit of their own ground cover, but like I say, I don't bother weeding. I don't get many. What I have got in here, they're just the little annuals that come and go every year. So as I'm pulling the spuds out and the spud plant material, chuck the weeds in, and it's just all going to go in the compost. Fab. And I have to say, this ground feels absolutely gorgeous. Let me give you a show and tell. I think it's probably really clear to see that we have had that good dose of rain at the end of July, and this soil has remained beautifully moist. The cardboard and leaf litter last autumn really helped. When I was preparing the beds, when I was digging the trenches, as you can see some of it coming up there, some of that leaf litter did get dug in. I wasn't particularly meaning to, because I didn't want the decaying leaves to then lock up a load of nitrogen in the bed. But actually, I think what was in there has meant good moisture retention without doing too much locking up of moisture. Gorgeous. Oh, I'm going to be feasting. Morning, Poppy. Yeah. I've noticed at the end of this bed, I've got a random self-seeded tomato. It's actually really quite big, and it's got quite a lot of fruit on it already, so I'm going to see if I can, at the moment it's lying through the potatoes. I'm going to see if I can stake it up and plant the brassicas around it. Not the the brassicas, getting in a muddle. And then I'm obviously making quite a lot of green compost at the moment. The compost bin I will talk about another day, because I need to do some work with it. But all this green stuff that I'm creating, I need to chop it up and get it chopped in with a lot of brown, because otherwise I'm just far too green. Oh, are you just mind you, look at the size, I think that's a bit of an offshoot of something, just the one in there. Yeah. Okay, let me get this lot finished and then I'll come back to you. Good stuff. Right, now that bed is clear, all I've done is I've given it a top dressing of some chicken manure, and then it was a little bit wider than I really wanted it, so where the nice soil was, Poppy, Poppy, no, oh Poppy. I'm just going to cover her up for a minute, give her some dignity. Poppy, you scoundrel, go away. What I was trying to say, is the bed was a bit too wide, so where all that nice soil was over here, I've just raked it over there and I've just trodden down where the new path will be, and that is all set to go for the purple sprouting broccoli. I haven't given it as thorough a dig over as I normally would for the potato bed, just trying to do a bit less digging. Probably means I'll have some random potatoes in the new year, but never mind. Okay, let's get on to the next harvest, which will be the Rockin' Core. Wow, the sun's coming out. The temperature has suddenly gone through the roof. It's crazy. Because of that, and the way things are going today, I'm not sure if I'm going to get time to plant my brassicas today. So all I've done behind me in that potato bed I've just cleared and top dressed, I've just put my shade tunnels over the whole thing. 2 reasons. One, to try to slow down any evaporation because there is really good moisture down there, so let's try and slow down that evaporation. And 2, well, you just saw Poppy had a wee. So yes, it's also to protect those bare beds from foxes digging and pooing and the cats digging and pooing and peeing, and it's the same story as I have at the beginning of spring when I'm prepping all my beds. As soon as it's prepped, get it covered in something. Anyway, so that's all done. Now it's time to have a go at these beautiful, gorgeous Beurre du Rocancourt. So the germination was really peculiar this year. I had the first flurry came up, they're the ones I'm harvesting from now, and then, but there were loads of gaps in germination, and I just thought, oh, here we go, you know, it's going to be a rubbish year, what have you. Left it a few more weeks, and then that initial sowing I'd done, a load more came up, and actually it's sort of done me a favour. Shush, aeroplane. Because it's actually acted like a successional sowing for me. And after that second flurry of germination, I was then pretty sure that where there were gaps, there was not going to be any more germination. So I re-sowed, because there are so many seeds in each bean, as it were. I always end up with way more seed than I need. I've given a load away, but I had tons left over still. So I re-sowed again. So in effect, it's as if I ended up with 3 sowings, which is great, because I think I was mentioning this the other day. One of the reasons I love these beans is because they come so quickly in the season, much more quickly than my climbing beans. But when they come, they're like London buses, they all come at once. So there's tons and tons for me to pick today. Preferably, I would be picking and eating fresh. But obviously one of the main things in my garden is that I grow to store for year-round use. So although I will be eating a load of these fresh over the next few days and weeks, in fact, because they'll keep producing for another, well, looking at the size of some of the smaller ones, I would say I've got another 4 weeks of picking. But I've purposely sown masses so that I've got enough to have fresh and enough to store. So for storing them, quick little wash when we get home, because they do sit quite low to the ground and they're really splattered with mud from where we've had the heavy rain in the last few days. So quick little wash. I'll chop them into sort of smaller pieces, inch-long pieces, what have you. Quick blanch. With these, I will blanch them, and then into the freezer. One of the reasons I will blanch these, where I don't with, say, the beans that I save as opposed to the pods, the blanching just helps to sort of retain the really lovely texture of them. I've tried it both ways in the past, blanched, not blanched. The not blanched, they tasted good, but the texture wasn't quite so good, so I ended up with quite a few of them, the non-blanched ones, using them in soup, pulverising them, so that I didn't have, it wasn't a good texture. So I'm definitely going to have my work cut out this evening when I get home. That's why I'm saying I don't know that I'm going to have the time to plant my brassicas today, just because I am going to be doing quite a lot of picking today, which means a lot of processing. And that's the thing at this time of year, isn't it? We have to remember to leave time each day possibly for watering. I don't need to water today, but quite often it's a case of make sure I leave a good hour and a half for watering, and then leave a good 3 or 4 hours for processing. I better get picking, hadn't I? while I'm in bean mode, as in whole pod, I'm going to have some of my helder away too. At this stage they're beautiful. You can see that the beans have hardly done anything inside, but I always grow helder to have as the whole pod. It's beautiful. It's somewhere between a French bean and a runner bean, but it doesn't have the horrible string bit. Hate the string. And the great thing about all of these climbing beans is the more you pick, the more you get, in theory. So it's well worth, it's well worth having a regular pick, even if you don't want them for supper that night. Pick them, get them in the freezer, because you should, by doing that, you should just keep getting more and more and more, because essentially you're sort of telling the plant, you're taking the plant seeds away from it. So the plant has a little panic and thinks, oh, I need to put out more flowers, I need to get more seeds, I need to survive. Oh, and on the subject of seeds, don't forget when you're going around all your beans and different things, earmark the ones you want for seed saving. Don't get to the end of the season. I did it a couple of years ago with my broad beans. I scoffed a lot, and then I suddenly thought, oh, I didn't save any of the plants specifically for seed saving. So yeah, enjoy lots and lots of pickings whilst you're out and about in the garden. Make a note of which plants are looking the healthiest, the most robust, the most prolific or whatever, and say, right, you're my seed saving plant. Yay! Now, what I'm not picking today are any of the Trail of Tears or the rattles, because I can't remember now whether I'm growing them for pods or for the beans, either for drying or for freezing demi-sec. So I need to go home and look that up again. I haven't grown them before, so I can't remember what I'm supposed to be doing with them. Yes, I need to do a bit of looking up. Fab. And it's amazing, isn't it, how many times you pick your beans, you walk away, and you see a whole bunch of them that you've missed. Yes, have a jolly, jolly good inspection. And never mind if you miss a couple and they get really big and tough, they can be for seed saving. Having never grown the lentils to fruition before, I am slightly experimenting with how I harvest. What I think I'm going to do, what I'm going to do is simply pull them up. Oh, really shallow roots, let me show you. Oh, sorry worm. Oh, I don't want you to bake, it's so hot. Go in there. Let me see if I can show you. Look how, that's its root. Yeah, so, for now, just get them all pulled out. And then in theory, well, at least commercially, what would then happen is they get threshed and winnowed. And what that means is the threshing part is they get bashed and bashed and bashed so that the little lentil is released from its pod, but you have all the lentil and all the pods and all the mess. And then the winnowing stage is, well, let's say I've got a big tray full of all the detritus plus the lentils. So I flick it in the air on a windy day, the detritus blows off and I'm left with just the lentils. So that sounds like, I don't know, obviously commercially they have machines to do that. I don't know if that's going to work for me. I may end up picking them out one at a time. I will, in a second, we'll go back to the shed and I'll crack one open for you to have a look at. Maybe it will be a case of, oh, that's pea, I don't need that. Maybe it's going to be a case of perhaps if I bash them against something hard whilst holding them. We'll have to see. I feel like this should be one of those episodes, you know, the we've talked about it within my Facebook group, the Ruth, what's her name, Ruth, Alex and Peter, the Edwardian farm, the wartime farm, that team. I feel like it's something that I need them here to show me. Ruth, come and help me. Yeah, so I get all the lentils out. Also, oh, tiptoeing. These peas are all just going to come out. They're all finished now. I'm not too much worried about leaving their roots in. That's fine. Keeping the soil open, and then at this end, I've got. Let me remove my stole now. Let's just try and grab a few out. These are my St. Hubert soup pea. This was intentionally a pea for drying. I think they're pretty dry. I could either just leave them as they are and hang them in the shed for now to let them do some more drying, but actually I think what I'll do is I'll just quickly whip the pods off the plant, take the pods home, pod them at home, spread them out, make sure they've got a thorough drying, and then give them the 3-day freezer technique. So that's another job for when I get home today. It's that time of year, isn't it, when, my goodness, just when you think everything in the garden is under control and ticking along nicely, it's that time to start pulling one crop out, putting another one in, spending hours and hours at home in the kitchen, preparing stuff for your long-term storage. It's blooming marvellous, isn't it? I love it. I love it, love it, love it. I think I was about to throw this and Poppy's walking past. I think, was it in the tour video I was saying, and actually Gary's just popped down as well, we were both saying it together, that it's just wonderful at this time of year to look at the garden, and literally every square inch of this garden that's not a path, and in some cases I've barely got a path now, but every square inch is packed, absolutely packed full of food. We are so lucky to have allotments. Yay! Right, well, I'm going to carry on getting these lentils out, and then I'm going to show you, I'm going to crack one open for you so you can see just how fiddly it is. That's a nice little haul for the morning. Obviously that's the St. Hubert peas. They need podding. The spuds I'll have fresh over the next, like I said, 2, 3, 4 weeks or so. I mean, I've got tons in here, but one new potato, that's enough for a meal on its own. They're all going to get blanched and frozen. Well, not all. I'll have a few fresh. And then here are all the lentils. And it occurred to me as I was gathering them up in their wee bunches like this, that maybe I should hang them in the shed in their bunches to dry a bit more. And then I can have a go at threshing them. Yes, I think that's what I'm going to do, because apart from anything else, I'm not going to have time today to do anything with them by the time I've dealt with this lot and the peas, and I've got a few other things at home to deal with. So yeah, I think I'll hang them in the shed. But first of all, let me show you one coming out of its pod. Okay, so here we've got 3 of the little pods. It's going to be so hard to show. Oh, that's a tiddler. That's not a very well formed one. Let's try this. Oh, the light's annoying today, isn't it? Oh, there are 2 in here. Let me pick that up. Right on the ends of my fingers. Yay! One of the pods burst open even as I put it down. That one's no good. Let's have a look in this one. Oh, just the one in there. So there we go. The beginnings of my lentil harvest. How crazy. Yes, the more I think about it, the more I think hanging them to dry will be a good idea, but I'll hang them with a sort of a paper bag underneath them, so that if any of the little pods burst open, I will catch each and every single little lentil. Woohoo! Wow, it's suddenly getting really unexpectedly hot. This was not the forecast for today. Never mind, it's beautiful, but I've run out of time. I'm not going to get the brassicas in today, and actually, just as I mentioned the other day, I'd rather do it on a much cooler, more shady day, because it'll be quite a shock for them if they come out into this, I'll show you, blazing sunshine. So I'm just going to finish off getting all the lentils tied into their bags and put in the shed to dry, tidy up, and then it'll be time to go home. But just had a fright of my life. Because the brassicas are still in the cold frame, despite the fact that we've been having rain, I thought, well, I better give them another watering, which I did do. Pulled the shade cloth back, and where I've got one of the roof panels, I just went to slide it back into place, and literally all I did was got hold of the handle. I hadn't even begun to move it, and as I touched the handle, the whole pane, it exploded. It just went. God, man, it's given me the fright of my life. It was about a third, maybe a half open. So where it's shattered, most of the shatter has landed on the top of the next pane over, where I had it over. But then loads of it's just fallen down into all the brassicas. And to be honest, I feel sick actually. I don't like it when things go wrong like that. And I just can't face dealing with it today. So I haven't got time to deal with it. That's going to be the first of the jobs when I come down next time, is to get all the glass out. I've secured all the sides so the cats can't get in, so they're all fine. And obviously I don't need the cold frame at this time of year. I won't need it again until sort of March or so next year. So that'll give me plenty of time to organise getting a panel. I'll get perspex like I did when one of the other panes shattered. I just replaced it with perspex. That, you know, that's really surprised me, because it's toughened glass. The number of times when I've been strimming and I flicked a twig up or whatever, I touched it in so much that I touched the handle. I didn't move it. There was zero pressure. Of course I don't lean on the actual cold frame, not on the glass bit, so I don't know why that's happened, but it has. How annoying. Never mind. The main thing is that's some good harvests today. All those beds which are now going to have brassicas put in, they've had a top dressing of chicken poo. I've raked that in a bit. I've put shade nets over all those beds so they don't dry out too much in the next couple of days before I can get back here to put my brassicas in. And yeah, the sooner I want that cold frame empty. That's proper spooked me today. Ooh, I don't know. So for now, from me, it's cheerio. I will see you all again soon, because it suddenly seems like the garden is really busy again. It's never not busy, is it? Apart from maybe January and February, when it's all about just harvesting the lovely brassicas, which I won't be harvesting next year unless I get them in. So it's time for me to go deal with this bit of harvest before I get back here to get the brassicas in, and then we can have a little breather. Please stay well, look after yourselves in the meantime, but I will see you all again really soon. Bye for now.